When you change the way you think about learning English, speaking fluently and confidently can happen very quickly. My name's Shane Mackey, and over the past 20 years I've helped thousands of people to speak English fluently. In this short video, I want to share with you 3 of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the last 20 years. The first one is that studying a language in a classroom is not the best way to speak it. Let me share with you how I learned this lesson. So I have a lot of experience learning languages, but 2 are French and Spanish. French I studied in school and university for over 10 years. I was quite good. I used to compete with my friend Rory on who could get the top score in the class. Then one year something strange happened. Rory came back after the summer holidays. He walked into the classroom and he had a full conversation with the teacher in French. He looked like a new person. He was full of confidence, and I didn't really understand what they were talking about. The French that they were speaking was completely different to the French that I had been studying in the book and using to pass the test. Then years later, when I was in university, I started to travel a lot, and I went to Germany and New York and Boston and Mexico. And when I was in Boston, I made a lot of friends from Mexico who speak Spanish, right? And I actually moved into an apartment with a group of Mexican people. I loved picking up Spanish and talking to these guys. I got quite good as well. And one year when I was flying back from Mexico, I was sitting beside a couple from France. Can you guess what language we spoke to each other? We actually spoke in Spanish. My Spanish was so much better than my French. I couldn't even have a conversation in French, even though I had studied it the traditional way for over 10 years. And that's really when I came to the conclusion that studying a language in the classroom is not the best way to speak it. After university, I wanted to travel the world, and I had learned that teaching English was a great way to do this. The problem was I had finished a bachelor's degree in electronic engineering, so I had to go and train to be a teacher. But once I started training to be an English teacher, I realized I had found my true passion. I loved it. A few months later, I was living in Thailand, living the dream, and I started teaching English, and I was shocked. The students couldn't understand what I was talking about. Even some of the teachers couldn't speak in English. When I tried to speak with them, they looked like they had a headache and they were overthinking everything. It was shortly after this that I learned lesson number 2, and that is, don't translate. What was happening in my students' heads was very interesting. After some analysis, I discovered they were listening to me speak in English. Then they were translating into Thai, their native language. Then they had to think of how to respond. Then they had to translate their answer back into English. And after that, they were trying to apply all those grammar rules their English teacher had been teaching them, and thinking about vocabulary and so many more things. That is impossible unless you're a robot. No one has time to do all of that and still have a conversation with a real person and connect with them. After that, I looked at other students who were speaking English fluently. The students who went on an exchange program to the USA, and they would come back after as little as 9 months speaking English like a native speaker. That's when I decided to transform my English class into an English-only environment. You see, fluent speakers don't study English. They practice using it in real life. So I introduced activities and games where my students had to use English to achieve a goal or win the game. And things got really interesting and the results were amazing. And now finally, I'd like to talk about lesson number 3, and this is a big one. This is that most English teachers kill confidence. The traditional system of education was designed a very long time ago, and it does not work that well to speak English fluently. These students had learned that mistakes were a bad thing, and they were in an environment where it was safer to stay quiet. They needed a supportive environment to speak out as much as possible and to understand that mistakes are a good thing. If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing. The truth is that English is a tool, and we can only master a tool by using it as much as possible. Confidence is the biggest thing that stops English learners from speaking English fluently. Confidence is also the #1 factor for success. Where does confidence come from? Confidence comes from experience. Watching my students grow in confidence every day has really been one of the most rewarding things I've had in my life. After about 15 years, I opened my own English language school in Thailand called Power English. We continued to get better and better results, and before long, the school was full. Then in 2020, COVID came along and turned the whole world upside down. We moved online, and now I get to help people all around the world speak English fluently. I have put all of my experience from over 20 years into one powerful system I call English for Success. Click below to learn all about this method and hear from some of our amazing students. I'll see you on the next page.